Teague, this is a treat because we had him on when he was brought in, when he was hired. It was great. He's great on social media. He's honest, he's candid, he's refreshing, and he's really, quite frankly, just what the Washington football team needed, to be honest with you. He is the president of the aforementioned team. Jason Wright back on the show. Jason, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Gentlemen, it's good to be back on. Happy to be here.
Yeah,
Nice.
No, it's glad to have you back, Jason. And there's a couple things to run by you off the top that I found really interesting. First of all, I didn't know you were a Liverpool fan like I am of the English Premier League.
Yes, sir.
But that's pertinent because when I heard your description of what the name ultimately is going to be of this Washington franchise, you were referencing English Premier League and how Liverpool has I guess a colloquial nickname called the Reds, but nobody uses it. It's always Liverpool Football Club, LFC. And you think Washington might be that because it represents the town, like the city, the surrounding areas, the Washington football team. While that might not stick and be, you said clunky, I think you're right, but it might just be Washington as opposed to why do we need a nickname?
Yeah, I think that's a viable option, and I think no matter what the name ends up being, it needs to represent. Mm-hmm. And if there's anything that ties this franchise to its history and the things that we want to preserve going forward, it's the fact that it's Washington, D.C. area's team. Mm-hmm. Doug Williams was throwing those touchdowns for the Washington, D.C. area team. Yeah. Joe Theismann was playing for the Washington, D.C. area team, and going back further and further. And so I do think it needs to represent the area, and it's going to help us, no matter what the name ends up being, craft our charitable portfolio, the way we engage with the public, all of that in a way that is very D.C. So that's sort of what I was trying to explain. And then that does mean that Washington is a viable option for the name. But I promise you I'm not stacking the deck.
But Jason, let me ask you this, though, Jason, because to come up with the name, right? Yeah. Boy,
it's just daunting. I can't even think about it.
Daunting is an understatement. Like, you can't have everybody weigh in because you'll never move on from. You'll just be in the room all night. At what point is there that line of delineation? And I don't mean to sound callous, but it's like, okay, these are the people who are deciding the name. Like, I don't know how you incorporate what the people want, what the fans across the country want for this team, and what the people in the room who are running the ship want. How do you strike that balance?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a little hard to describe, but I think the bar is when I and our leadership team feel comfortable that we really understand our fans in a deep way. For example, like we know what the fans want, some of the names that they want in sort of the what sense, this name or that name or this name. But we need to actually do the research to understand why. So, for example, one of the popular names folks throw out is Red Wolves, and there's a howl associated with that, and they've got some cool ideas about conservation and doing that as a charitable thing. Like, do we actually have an environmentally thoughtful fan base? Is that part of what's underneath this? Do we feel like we need something to unify the stadium that's an easier, simple chant because we want to feel bonded to one another in a simple way? Like, if we get underneath why they want these names, then irrespective of which direction we go, we can make sure we design the fan experience in a way that meets people where their hearts are at. And that's actually what's important. And at risk of, saying something a little bit bad, I don't think we know our fans as well as we could. And it's important for us to use this as an opportunity to get to know them that way. And it'll inform a lot of different things.
That's smart. That is smart, Jason.
Yeah. How are you guys going about doing that? Is it town halls? Is it, how are you going about finding out?
You can't congregate. How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to make it happen over Zoom and Microsoft Teams and like everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But I think there's three things we'll do. There's the nerd approach, and we will do outside-in analytic analysis of the market. And that's not just of our existing fans. That's of the past fans that have ebbed and fallen away from the franchise, and the demographics we want to attract to bring into the Washington football family in the future. And there are analytic techniques that we'll use to do that. So there's a nerd vein. Then there's the vein we're talking about here, which is, the upfront and close contact approach, close contact in COVID. But this is, virtually having these focus groups. And I would love for it to be, a set of fans alongside alumni talking to our team about why these aspects of name and identity are important to them. And then I think there's a final aspect that's about engaging community leaders. So this is, leaders in the D.C. area, the legislative leaders, the folks leading nonprofits and community organizations, the activists in the area, Native American and tribal leaders, because they have equity in this decision as well. So there are a set of folks that we will talk to that are leaders. I think we'll pull all of that together, and with that deep understanding, make a call.
Good luck, buddy.
I know, right? Hey, I know everybody's not going to be happy, so I've already resigned myself to that.
Yeah, smart.
But the best thing I can do is just keep it 100 with people about how we're approaching it and why we landed where we landed, and then try to make it as dope a rollout as possible.
That's all you can do, man.
To bring everybody on board.
It's a great attitude. Jason Wright, president, Washington football team, who, by the way, Teak, I mean, they're going to win a divisional title this year or what here? What's going on, Jay? Going to steal something?
I mean, we'll take it. I think if I'm not on the football side, but it's hard as a former player to not be excited about the position we're in. And I know Coach Rivera thinks this too. If you think about our team, you want a young team to know that they need to grow. Mm-hmm. And our record would suggest we have room to grow. And so the team gets that message. But also for a young team to know they need to improve, but be playing meaningful games, that's an ideal situation to establish the kind of culture that Coach wants to put in place. So I'm very excited for the guys on the football side, and it makes it a ton of fun to watch now, too, especially as we're moving the ball better and better.
Yeah, no, you can be a fan. It's pretty fun. Obviously you have the job, but you can also be a fan now because you know what's happening on that side of the business. Now, you said you were on the business side, not the football side. And it's interesting, though, because you mentioned connecting with the fans and, that churn that every business worries about and how you bring that back is always relevant. And I wonder because Dwayne Haskins, when he was drafted, I think people in the area, because he's local, he's a local kid, it felt good. It felt right. He struggled. Ron Rivera made the decision to pull him. You've also drafted well from Chase Young at the beginning of the draft. As you think about the football side, even though this isn't your under your purview per se, but the football side, the personalities, how are you starting to make that connection? Because it matters. Like the players matter when you're trying to rehabilitate, let's use as a word, the brand of the Washington football team.
That's a great question. So I think about it in a couple of different ways. The first thing is, I as a former player like to take this lens. There are folks that played, and no shot to anybody out there, but maybe you played JV football in high school and you played running back.
Yep.
There were folks when I was playing would want to tell me about how to read the hole. And I would say, you know what? I've had a few more years at this. I think I've developed a bit more expertise. Thank you for your input. Moving on. I feel the same way about the football side, coaching decisions, roster decisions, things like that. Yes, I played in the league for 7 years. Yeah, I played college football, all that. But these coaches, scouts, and others have been spending decades studying the craft in a different way, breaking down hours upon hours of film in another way that I haven't. And they have a level of expertise that I salute. Therefore, my role is whatever decisions they're making, whatever strategy they're setting, is to come in line and promote that in the best way I can, whether that's bringing clarity in the media, whether that is pumping up the players that we do put on the field through our marketing and social media operations. And then when I flip to the player side and I think about their aims, especially their aims off the field, and that could be philanthropic stuff around social justice or healthcare, things like that, it's my job to use our assets of the franchise to magnify their pursuits. And then I've got a personal side to it as well. And, Tiki, you can relate to this. It's like I want to help these guys really make the NFL a come up for them.
Yeah.
Because it's not a lifelong career. Very few people make lifelong money playing it. So I want this to be a come-up for them. So as they have personal pursuits, especially in the off-season, I'm here for that too.
Yeah, no, it's raising the floor. That's how I always describe it. You raise your floor once you've stepped into the National Football League, and what you do from that new plateau is really up to you. But let me ask you a question about the Snyders, Mr. and Mrs. Snyder. This analogy was given to me once from a former Washington player who came to the New York Giants, and he said the difference in Washington than it was in New York is that when I'm walking through the building in New York, I feel like I'm even though I'm not talking to the owner, I feel like I'm talking to the owner, right? Whether it's his grandkid or his son or whoever it may be, it just felt familiar. As the Snyders are rebuilding this franchise, obviously bringing you in, bringing Ron Rivera in, what's the state of the rebuild? Like, how has it been for you all, this culture change that was necessary, utterly and absolutely necessary? What's the state of it right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'll try to pull back the curtain as much as I can on this. I'll start by saying Dan and Tanya would want you to call them Dan and Tanya. They wouldn't want to be called Mr. and Mrs. Snyder. They'd want to be called Dan and Tanya. I think one thing that's important about this culture change, and I know it was a sticking point for both Coach and myself, is that we wanted to come into this role and be treated as the senior executives. And anybody who's honest about reading the franchise outside in thought, is that really what you're going to get? It has been 100% what we've gotten. Coach has had 100% autonomy to make the calls he wants to make around the team. I've had 100% autonomy to make the calls I need to make on the business side. And I have not always agreed with Dan and Tanya on all of the business issues that have faced us. But at the end of the day, they said, Jason, we hired you for this. We're going to roll with you. Think about these two things, counterpoints that we brought up, but roll with it. We put our trust in you. I've had no hindrance to the things that I want to do. And so that's an important starting point and a foundation for the culture change. Beyond that, we've done a few things. And pretty soon we'll be announcing our chief people officer. But prior to that person showing up to really establish a people strategy and great human resources, we've actually started to put in place all the blocking and tackling. All the minute and mundane stuff that is not worth listing out, but I'll give an example. We went from what was a bit of a paltry parental leave to league-leading parental leave. And we just made changes upon changes like that to make it a workforce and a workplace that is an environment where everybody's excited to be in, especially for our women colleagues, where some of these things are especially important, and we heard from them early on. And, Frank, I'm talking to everybody in the organization by the end of the year, so I'm going to hear more and more, and we'll make more and more of those changes.
It's Jason Wright, who's the president of the Washington football team with us here on Tiki and Tierney. The engagement, I love how you tweet. I love how real you keep it. You keep it loose and funny. It's not like you keep your tweets the way you keep a conversation with us. It's just a normal conversation. Yeah. No false pretense like, oh, I'm the president. Let me type it in a way that makes me look like I'm the president. No, you just type what's on your mind, and you're smart, and you trust your instincts. But I'm wondering, can you quantify the increase in engagement since you came in and since Julie? We know Julie Donaldson pretty well. Her doing her thing. Like, I feel like the social media for the team has been on fire, and it's been so well received. Can you actually quantify that?
Well, one of the things that we're doing as part of the culture change is we are bringing in fresh talent. And that can be disruptive to an organization, or it can be galvanizing. I think what you're seeing is that it's galvanizing. On social media, we've got Marcus Stevenson, who leads our content creation, our content studio. And we just brought in a guy, Ray Elenti, he was at the XFL, was at the Jets, and is a great creative talent, along with a team that was already there. And we've just given them leeway. The same way that I talked about me and Coach having autonomy, I said to them, hey, do your thing.
Nice.
Do your thing. Push the boundaries here. Be very creative, be in line with the zeitgeist and the way that people communicate on social media. And let's show that we are evolving into a modern franchise by the way we speak.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.